Hi, this is Roger Joseph Manning Jr., and you're listening to Your Morning Coffee, the podcast with Jay Gilbert and Michael Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide, Majors, Believe, BMG, Concord, Hybe, and more propose chart eligibility rules for AI music.
From Charisma Matterang at Rolling Stone, Grammy's CEO defends new Asian pop category after BTS says they won't participate in the 2027 awards.
From Gene Park at the Washington Post, once you hear it, the Gen Alpha melody is everywhere.
And from Miranda Rowland over at Paste, 10 biggest AI music artists have made $6.1 million on Spotify and YouTube. A new report suggests. Well, we've got so much to cover today. It's episode 313. Let's put the needle on the vinyl right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Just as fast as you can. Well, then it's round the red and punch the clock, the 9 to 5 grind. Welcome to the new modern land. After school's the last days off for gymnastics, the soccer drama, skate by ballet. I'm stuck in traffic, drive through dinner, hitting the sack. There's got to be a much better way. This one goes out to the parents. This place love is so transparent.
Love that song, Jay. Love that song.
Yeah, that was Modern Dance, the after-school specials by Roger Joseph Manning Jr. from his upcoming release, Hopium. That's coming out September 18th. It's available for pre-order through Omnivore Recordings. We're big fans.
We are indeed. Roger Joseph Manning Jr. is a keyboardist, singer, and songwriter who co-founded the bands Jellyfish, the Moog Cookbook, Imperial Drag, and the Licorice Quartet. We are both big fans of all the stuff he's been involved with, and as a keyboard player, he is one of my idols, to be honest. He's a great player and a great singer and a great arranger, and man, the guy is a super talented hombre.
Yeah.
Jay, before we jump into the stories, let's thank our sponsors. Support for the show comes from Cosign. Cosign is a reimagined publishing administration platform launched by independent music publisher Cobalt.
Right, it's designed for artists, producers, and songwriters. It allows creators to collect global publishing royalties with simple, transparent terms and no long-term contracts.
In its first year of operation, Cosign was named one of the 10 most innovative companies by Fast Company. Find out why at cosignmusic.com. And every week I get to hang out, every weekend I should say, because that's usually when we get together, with my good friend Jay Gilbert, music business consultant, educator, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups.
That's right, and every week I get to do this show with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group.
All right, well, let's jump into the stories.
Let's do it. Our first story is from Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide. The headline, Majors, Believe, BMG, Concord, Hybe, and many others propose chart eligibility rules for AI music.
Yeah, a coalition of major and independent labels, all three majors, by the way, UMG, Sony, and Warner, plus Believe, BMG, Concord, Dirty Hit, Glassnote, Hybe, Mom and Pop, and Partisan, proposed a shared set of principles for when AI-involved recordings should be allowed on official music charts.
Yeah, note that the RIAA and IFPI were not part of this specific announcement, but we'll touch on the IFPI's announcement in just a minute. So there are 6 eligibility criteria. A track can't chart if there's reason to believe it fails any of these. So number 1, any generative AI service used was properly authorized and lawful. Number 2, the recording is substantially human-made. Number 3, no stream or chart manipulation concerns.
The fourth eligibility criteria, compliance with copyright, related rights, and personality rights law. The fifth, distribution doesn't breach the AI service's own terms. And the sixth, AI use is disclosed to consumers per applicable law and labeling standards. So here's what you need to know. This is industry self-governance, not law. The companies are positioning it as a unified roadmap they want charts and industry bodies to adopt. It has no teeth until compilers like Billboard actually implement it.
Yeah, and the timing lines up with real volume pressure. Deezer reported around 90,000 fully AI-generated tracks every day in June. That's up over 50% of new uploads on peak days, up from 75,000 in April and just 10,000 a day back in January of 2025. So that trajectory is the backdrop for making this so urgent.
Another important point, fraud is the other half of the story. So Deezer says up to 85% of streams on fully AI-generated tracks in 2025 were fraudulent, even though total AI stream share is still just anywhere from 1% to 3%. That's the chart manipulation clause doing real work.
Yeah, and the next point about platform responses, they've really remained fragmented. Deezer detects at the platform level and feeds Billboard's AI determination. Spotify and Apple Music rely on labels and distributors to self-disclose. Tidal blocks AI tracks from royalties entirely, and we've been talking a lot about Qobuz lately. They've added its own detection. That came in February. So there's no unified standard yet, which is exactly the gap this proposal is trying to address.
And the last thing is litigation context matters here too. So UMG and Sony remain in active suits against Suno, which just lost a copyright case to Gemma in Germany, while Warner settled and license partnered with Suno, and Udio is now settled with UMG, Warner, Merlin, Cobalt, Believe, and the NMPA. Sony's the lone major holdout here.
Right, and we mentioned the IFPI. There was a story from the IFPI. And the headline was IFPI rolls out global principles for the eligibility of recordings developed using AI in official music charts worldwide. So the IFPI announced this new global framework governing when AI-assisted recordings can appear on official music charts. And this is worldwide. And this is developed with Sony, UMG, and Warner.
Yeah, it's rolling out now across IFPI-run charts like in Latin America, MENA, Southeast Asia, and South Africa, and expanding to 20-plus national charts, including major European and Asia-Pacific markets. The three-part eligibility test is as followed. Number 1, any Gen AI tool used must be properly authorized or licensed. No unlicensed AI models. Number 2, the track must be substantially human-made, that's in quotation marks. And number 3, no stream or chart manipulation red flags.
Yeah, and this is really similar to that, what we were just talking about, the Murray Stassen article, about the majors and all of these others who are putting forth these rules, these eligibility criteria for AI. So it's moving in the right direction.
It is, but it's also so complicated and difficult. Talking about substantially human-made, well, that's a little wishy-washy. What exactly does that mean, and how is that gauged?
Yeah. This is going to evolve over time, for sure. There's a story that was from Gene Park in the Washington Post that was making the rounds, and a lot of people were talking about this. The headline was, "Once you hear it, the Gen Alpha melody is everywhere." So there's this Danish musicology student, Carl Martin, and he wrote a 4-note melody. This is back in 2019. He thought was pure gold, but then he kept hearing it everywhere.
So Apata, that's by Rosé and Bruno Mars, K-pop, indie, dance, and pop hits across dozens of languages. He spent months cataloging over 500 songs, narrowed it to 72 close matches, and posted a 14-minute YouTube video, now having 3.3 million views, dubbing it the Gen Alpha Melody, a simple contour found in tracks by Ava Max, Madison Beer, Clyro, Youngblood, Volbeat, and artists from Egypt, India, Spain, and Italy.
It's everywhere. So let's listen to 30 seconds of the 14-minute YouTube video of this Gen Alpha Melody. So thank you, Carl Martin. I think some of these artists have some splaining to do, Mike.
Some splaining to do indeed. Our next story is from Charisma Matarang over at Rolling Stone. The Grammys CEO defends new Asian pop category after BTS says they won't participate in the 2027 awards. So BTS announced they won't submit their new album, Ararang, for 2027 Grammy consideration, a decision that came right after the Recording Academy introduced a new Best Asian Pop Music Performance category.
Right. Grammy CEO Harvey Mason Jr. posted a statement saying he was saddened but respected the choice, framing the new category as additive rather than segregating, arguing that it expands recognition rather than boxing artists in, and stressing that entering a genre category like Asian pop doesn't disqualify an artist from also competing in the general field. You know, that's record of the year, album of the year, song of the year. BTS's own statement was pointed. They said that they hope music can be, quote, heard and loved for what it is, rather than being divided into region or language, end quote.
Interesting. Well, here's what you really need to know about this whole thing. This is a category legitimacy fight, not a snub of BTS. The Academy didn't reject BTS. BTS opted out in protest of how the industry is choosing to classify them.
Yeah, and the more categories equals more inclusion argument, that's colliding with an artist identity argument. Harvey Mason Jr.'s logic, spotlight plus general field eligibility preserved, is the standard Grammy defense whenever a new genre lane draws backlash. It's the same shape of argument used around Latin music, regional Mexican, and other carve-out categories historically.
So the question, does a Best Asian Pop category expand access to Grammy voters, or does it function as a soft ceiling that keeps globally dominant acts like BTS out of the marquee categories they've already competed in?
Well, and there's also this precedent. There's a risk. If a supergroup with BTS's commercial weight walks from the process, it raises the question of whether other non-U.S. based major acts will follow suit, especially amid broader conversations about the Grammys' historical struggles with recognizing K-pop in top-line categories. Our next story is about Matt Ermey. He's the co-founder and CEO of Artist Growth. And when I was at Music Biz in Atlanta, I met up with Matt. He's a Nashville-based, singer-songwriter turned entrepreneur who co-founded this company called Artist Growth back in 2011 with Jonathan Sexton. He was really the first to explain MCPs to me, and He made a bold prediction about them that I thought was spot on. And we talked about MCPs a little bit last week, but we'll let Matt sort of explain what all of that means. Let's listen in. Matt Ermey, great to see you. How are you, man?
I'm awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for connecting.
Thanks for taking the time. So for someone with no previous knowledge, what sort of problems does Artist Growth solve?
Artist Growth is a platform that is built for people who are on artists' teams. So that could be managers, tour managers, talent agents, record label staff. And the problem we solve is that all of the information, despite all of the innovation and investment that's been made over the years in gathering data from the DSPs, and then and coming out of the pipes of those DSPs, the data is structured, and so you can build with it and you can work with it. But the data that is generated every day inside of all these businesses that are running marketing campaigns and promo campaigns and coordinating touring and coordinating, press events and all this stuff that's happening in order to grow the artist business, it generates a tremendous amount of data. And that data is living in unstructured, free-flowing environments like Word docs and emails and texts and Google Docs, and it's all over the map. And so we provide people a platform to centralize all of that collaboration, all of that coordination around those specific workflows that happen day in and day out around building the artist business. And then that data gets structured, and that data is then available for the larger business to synthesize and gain intelligence from. So we sort of sit as a bridge between the operators and the daily grind and the data infrastructure. And through our architecture, now the insights teams are able to generate intelligence out of the information.
Got it. So when you and I met at Music Biz in Atlanta back in May, you told me about MCPs and you made some bold predictions about adoption of that technology. And a lot of this is coming true. So explain to our listeners, like you did with me, what is an MCP and how is Artist Growth using the technology?
Yeah, so the simplest way I can think about it, just for your listeners without knowing what everybody's background is, an MCP, it's a protocol that was first thrown out there by Anthropic, which is the company that makes Claude. It's been adopted widely since they made it, and I think people who are not living inside the technology world software bubble are less familiar with it than those of us who are. But it's, in simple terms, it's a piece of technology that sits in between a database, so a piece of software and the data model under that software. It sits between that and the LLMs. And it does two primary things. Provides the LLMs with a set of instructions about what data lives inside that database, how it's structured, how the APIs work, why that data exists, who the users are of that data, what they're trying to accomplish. So it can provide the LLMs with a ton of context about that specific information. And then the other thing it does is gives the LLM a set of tools to go hit those APIs and grab the data and do things with it. It teaches them. So that way, when you go to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and you say, hey, tell me, where all my artists are going to be next week and what's happening with their social media accounts, instead of the LLMs having to infer what it is you're trying to achieve and then go do a web search to try to pull all this data, it hits a connector, an MCP server, and then it goes, oh, I know exactly where all that data lives for all of these artists and exactly what this person wants from it, because there's all these examples in the MCP, and it can pull that data, build a report for you in seconds. That then just shaves hours off of your life, trying to hunt all this data down. And it can do the reverse, which is you can say, hey, I need to make a ticket request for this show, or hey, here's a spreadsheet with 100 different release dates in it, add it to my system, and it can take all that data and crunch it and add it to your database in seconds and get it correct, as opposed to it being a hot mess.
So you've said that AI doesn't fix bad data, it amplifies it, and that permissions are everything with artist data. Labels and agencies are understandably nervous about AI touching sensitive financial information, artist information. How does Artist Growth's role-based permission structure actually prevent an LLM from seeing or doing something it shouldn't?
We've invested tremendous amounts of time and money into building what I think is probably the most customizable and flexible security model inside of a piece of software around music. So every organization can create their own unlimited number of roles that are very customized for their context. And then they can assign those roles to users that they invite in, but all of those users can get different roles for the different artists across the roster or different subgroups of artists. So a single user could have 10 different roles across 30 different artists. And as they navigate through our system, the data that's being displayed and managed changes and conforms to those roles. So when you bring an LLM to that, the way we've implemented our MCP forces the LLM through that permissions structure. So the LLM with our MCP implementation has no access to the actual database. It goes in if we force the user to authenticate, and then it goes straight through the APIs the same way a request in our UI would. So if somebody goes and clicks something, that triggers an API call, and in that API is baked in who this user is and what their roles are. And so if somebody tries to ask for something that they're not granted in their role matrix, then the LLM is going to go, oh yeah, sorry, I can't show you that. You don't have permission to see that. Go contact your administrator. And we've actually built that into the way we've, in the instructions that we've given the LLM. And so one, we force it through the APIs as opposed to giving it direct access to the database. And then two, all the context we've built in teaches it. Like if somebody's asking for something that isn't included in this permissions matrix, you need to tell them to go ask their administrator for permission because they currently don't have it. And so it's essentially forces the LLM to become you as a user trying to access the data, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We need to have you back on, Matt, for a longer conversation. But in the meantime, where can our listeners learn more about you and Artist Growth?
Well, they can come to artistgrowth.com. We've got all the information about our MCP or a lot of information about it up on our website. You can easily book a demo with us. LinkedIn is another place to find me. And we'll hop on a call with you and talk all about it. I think it's important that people not just understand AG, but understand how this technology works. And we're at a place in time where leaders have got to tune in and understand the implications and the possibilities that this technology unlocks. Because if they don't, they're going to structurally be at a disadvantage from the people who do tune in and do start to fully leverage the capabilities that MCPs and LLMs are bringing now.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Talk soon.
Yeah, from their website, roster operations infrastructure for the era of AI, event management, artist schedules, projects, tasks, ticket requests, EPKs, analytics, real-time communication, and collaboration, all in a single platform, integrated with your AI of choice. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting indeed. Well, our next story is from Miranda Wolin over at Paste. The 10 biggest AI music artists have made $6.1 million on Spotify and YouTube, a report suggests. So Capwing, that's an AI editing platform, released a study analyzing streaming and follower data for the top 10 highest earning AI artists, in quotation marks, across Spotify and YouTube. The combined figure, roughly $6.1 million in estimated revenue.
Interesting. So here's a breakdown. Spotify, the top 10 AI artists on Spotify earned around $2.4 million from about nearly 600 million streams. And on YouTube, a little bit of a higher haul at about $3.7 million from 1.75 billion views.
All right, here's some key names you might want to know about. Cherry, that's YouTube's top AI earner, about a $2 million earner, by the way. Near daily Nightcore EDM uploads, creator claims traditional production tools were used, but Capwing suspects the tracks themselves are AI generated.
Yeah, and a couple we've talked about before. Enly Blue, that's Spotify's top earner. That's a 1950s style blues persona. Earned about $380,000. Breaking Rust, that country band Zanaya Monet, who we talked about. Boy What, that's a metal rock act using AI SpongeBob vocals over human metalcore recordings. And, there's some other notable earners.
King Wallonius of BBL Drizzy fame uploaded more than 500 charting tracks, more than any other creator in the study, raising questions about oversight expectations for AI-assisted releases at scale. Also, Masters of Prophecy, that's a synth rock group that hit 30 million YouTube subscribers in under a year. Researchers Ryan Broderick and Adam Boomas flagged the growth as suspicious.
This is a genuine revenue stream now, not a novelty. $6.1 million across just 10 acts on 2 platforms may suggest AI music has crossed into real commercial territory.
Disclosure and authenticity is murky, so several of these artists involve pseudonymous creators making ambiguous claims about how much AI is actually involved.
So platform incentives cut both ways. The report's closing question, what does inauthentic growth even mean? On a platform increasingly powered and populated by AI.
Yeah, and volume strategy is emerging as its own tactic. So King Wallonius's 500-plus track output signals a new kind of catalog flooding approach, very much distinct from traditional artist release strategy.
Yeah, that was super interesting. And more to come. Our next story is from Rachel Scharf over at Billboard. The headline is Ticket Broker Pays Bots Act Fine for Buying Up Tate McRae, Megan Maroney concert seats. So Georgia-based Elite Events, that's smartscalpers.com, they settled with the FTC over allegations it used overseas ticket pullers, fake email addresses, virtual credit cards, and proxy IP servers to bypass Ticketmaster and access purchase limits. The FTC says the company scooped up over 100,000 tickets across nearly 6,000 events between 2022 and now, then resold them at markups on StubHub, Vivid Seats, and SeatGeek.
So who were the artists named? Tate McRae, Megan Maroney, Benson Boone, and Metallica. Specific numbers cited in the complaint, nearly 1,600 tickets for Maroney's Am I OK tour, over 1,000 for Boone's Fireworks and Rollerblades tour, almost 300 for a single Metallica M72 show, and 400 plus for one McRae mispossessive stop. The complaint specifically ties McRae's fast sellouts to fans getting pushed onto resale markets at 2 to 3 times the face value of those tickets.
Right. And the penalty gap is a real story. You know, almost $11 million judgment, but the FTC is letting Elite Events settle for just $300,000 due to, quote unquote, a lack of current financial resources. That's under 3 cents on the dollar. This seems to be a recurring pattern in these cases. Big headline numbers, but small actual recovery.
Well, here's what you need to know about a lot of this stuff. The Bots Act enforcement, well, it's heating up. Passed in 2016, barely enforced for a decade. Now the FTC has brought 2 high-profile cases in under 2 years. This one plus the key investment group Eras Tour case.
Yeah, there's a policy driver behind the timing. Last year's executive order directed the FTC to specifically go after ticket resellers under Bots Act authority. This is that directive paying out.
Yeah, also Ticketmaster itself is also in the FTC's sights. A separate suit alleges the platform failed to police broker misconduct on its own marketplace, which is worth a mention as the flip side of this enforcement push.
Right. And finally, the collectability problem. Do judgments like this actually deter bad actors, given brokers can apparently just claim insolvency and pay a fraction? Super interesting.
Kind of depressing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang. Our next story is from Bill Donahue over at Billboard. Leakers beware. All the music stars who crack down, from BTS to Madonna to Ariana Grande. So Billboard's Bill Donahue rounds up the history of artists taking legal action against music leakers, pegged to Ariana Grande's new lawsuit against unnamed John Doe hackers this week.
And here's some points that the bill points out. Grande's case, her lawyers say she's faced hundreds of hacks since 2011, including a 2019 theft of unreleased masters and demos, 2 2024 phishing attacks, and 45 songs leaked in 2023 alone. The suit targets unknown hackers, often via her producers or photographers, as backdoor access points.
Right, there are some precedent artists. Guns N' Roses back in 2008, the Chinese Democracy leak. Leaker Kevin Cogill got home confinement under federal anti-piracy law. Madonna back in 2014, the Rebel Heart leak, and an Israeli hacker got 14 months. And then Megan Thee Stallion accused her own label, 1501, of leaking Traumazine amid their legal battle.
Right, and Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, used trade secrets theory against an Instagram leak account. Kelsey Ballerini in 2024 accused an ex-superfan who folded fast after a suit was filed. And BTS/Hybe subpoenaed X to unmask a leaker of their latest album.
Yeah, well, here are a few things you need to think about and know. Legal action rarely unleaks anything. Attorney Tal Dickstein's blunt line, no way to put the genie back in the bottle. The value is deterrence and identifying the source, not damage control.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then number 2, the access point is usually a human, not a system. Collaborators, producers, photographers, even labels themselves, see the Megan Thee Stallion, are the recurring leakers, not some hacker breaching a DSP.
Another interesting point, legal theories are getting creative. Ye's team used trade secret law, an approach normally reserved for corporate IP, showing artist lawyers are stretching frameworks to fit an old problem in new legal packaging.
Yeah, and the final point that settlements dominate nearly every case here. BTS, Ye, Megan, they ended in confidential settlement rather than trial, meaning the actual leakers and mechanisms rarely become public record.
Man, it is so hard to keep track of, when you know more than anybody, when you're working with artists and there's files going back and forth and different people in the loop for different things, it is really easy to lose track of who's got what.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Our last story, it's by Kyle Dennis and Andrew Unterberger over at Billboard. How did multiple podcasts help a new song by Magnus Farrell, that's the son of Will Ferrell, go viral? So Magnus Farrell, yes indeed, that is Will's son, released Asleep Talking back on April 24th. It's a blue-eyed soul mid-tempo track compared to Robin Thicke and Justin Timberlake territory and Bobby Caldwell's What You Won't Do for Love. It sat quietly for 3 months.
Well, then Will Ferrell appeared on Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson's IMO podcast on July 1st and played a snippet of his son's track. Then on July 23rd, the Morning Shift show, that's got 1.6 million TikTok followers, gave it a favorable mention. Magnus also fueled the fire with his own content, reaction clips to NBC News coverage, plus a Blue Note LA residency in July.
Yes, indeed. Well, here's the numbers. Between the 18th and the 21st of July, just 67,000 official on-demand U.S. streams. Jump up to July 22nd through the 25th, an almost 900% jump to over 670,000 streams after the podcast and TikTok wave hit. Result, number 24 debut on August 1st, the digital song sales chart.
Magnus now joins his dad as a Billboard charting artist. Will Ferrell's Husavik, that's the Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga, remember that movie? It peaked at number 16 on the same chart back in 2020.
Yeah, this is a clean case study in podcast to streaming attribution. A dormant catalog track, 3 months old, reactivated purely through earned media and organic mentions rather than a new release cycle or paid push. Well, it helps when your dad is Will Ferrell, too.
Well, it does, and it sounds like he got some really great podcast placements, and that's not something people have talked a lot about, but it's a thing.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, listen, speaking of a thing, it's time to wrap up the show. We do want to thank our sponsors, including Cosign. Big thanks to Cosign and the good folks over there. If you'd like to advertise in the podcast and the newsletter, by the way, you can go over to yourmorning.coffee. Music is by our friends, the Licorice Quartet. And if you enjoy the show, please just tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate that. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening in. We will be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.